Hello, Internet. So, I'm in my car again. Um, kind of prefer it this way personally. I guess just some quick thoughts for today. I was just thinking, every day just seems like it's just blended into one horrible mesh. You know, there's nothing really distinctly different from one day to the next. It's just one continuously long, horrible day with naps in between. I I was also thinking when I used to always think about collapses and doomsday shit, I used to always think it'd be like one massive calamity that would happen, like an asteroid or like zombies or something. And the zombies never came, which is what I was hoping for. Not for some shitty pandemic where you gotta wear a fucking cloth mask and get the jab, which I'm not against. Get fucking vaccinated. That aside, it's a multitude of things. And I watch the news and it's a nightmare anymore. And it's hard to even feel like any of it's real. It's all so surreal anymore. From like climate change, which we've known about forever, getting much worse. I think I heard an interview with a member of the UN saying that, like, if we continue with business as usual, we're going to exceed the 1.5 degrees Celsius mark that was supposed to be the bookmark for as far as we could go. That if we continue on like the path we're on, we're actually going to get to 2.7 degrees Celsius, which is going to be a nightmare. I know that like the last IPCC report said that we are in code red right now. I mean, I've lived in California my whole life and I've felt that way. I mean, the summers have just gone longer and hotter, and it's like you just know that eventually your house is either going to get burnt down to the ground and or you're going to walk out of your house and the sky will be orange, which has happened to me several times. I even remember back in high school, walk out of my school and it's a giant clouds of like orange dust in the air and ash, lots of ash get all over your car. But anyway, but the funny thing that I always enjoy is that after every fire, Gavin Newsom loves to stand with tired, weary-ass firefighters in front of a camera and say, "This is what climate change looks like." Like, no, duh. Thanks, Gav. What are you gonna do about it? Nothing, like you always do. Why don't you buy more hair gel? Everything just seems so empty anymore. You look at people and there's this level of emptiness inside of each person that you see that you know you can't necessarily reach anymore. Nobody seems very interested in reaching out to each other anyway. It's like all these lines have been drawn and people just refuse to like reach out to one another. I don't even think people even know how to reach out to each other anymore. I've tried to talk to people about politics, about all sorts of things, and nothing you can do seems to help anything. You know, how do you operate in a country where so many of the people don't even want to agree on a certain set of facts? You just can't. A democracy can't operate like this. We're not going to have some collapse happen. We're in the middle of a collapse. We're experiencing it. Like I said earlier, it's not just one big event, which was what I used to always think. I think it's a number of events taking place over a long enough period of time to where when the last domino falls, there's nothing left. I mean, a CNN report came out recently saying that half of the American population thinks that the next election, they'll just overturn the election, or there'll be a riot or some shit for the party that loses. This isn't how we're supposed to operate. There are whole family members that can't even talk to each other anymore. I know I have that issue. And the saddest thing is nobody cares. Nobody cares about each other anymore. Maybe this is me being too much of like my age or whatever, but I can remember when people talked to you when I was younger, it was like they actually really genuinely cared. They didn't talk at you or to you. Let me rephrase that. They didn't talk at you, they talked to you. They were able to show a real interest in other people. We've made each other so replaceable by the system we've created to make us more connected, but it's actually in turn made us more divided, more hateful, and more reactive. I find I go outside sometimes, people will just stare at you if you have a mask on, or anything really. Step outside, it's like nobody knows how to socially interact with each other anymore. And I hate to say it, but I'm kind of guilty of it as well, because there's so many times where I thought I could trust people, and I have found that I'm just not operating on the certain same set of facts in reality. I don't hate America. I just hate what we're becoming. And it makes me so sad, because we could be so much more than what we are. At the height of this pandemic, I remember watching videos and even seeing it with my own eyes where people would just steal toilet paper and paper towels from the elderly. It takes a real crisis in life to make you know what you really are about. And America isn't about shit. We are an empty culture, and the people have become empty-minded because of it. People think that it makes you such a better person to just cut each other off. Just be as mean and spiteful as possible. I see it in everybody now. It's like, how can I get what I want from this person? There's no sense of community. There's no sense of belonging. It's like everybody's just operating on their own island anymore. And I mean, sometimes I can't blame people for operating like that. We're all kind of in a strange survivalist mindset right now. I can be that way too. And it's so hard to break out from that, to reach out to other people. I find myself even now, after everything with the pandemic, that now that I'm working full time, I wish I could go back to lockdown, because the job I do, I have to tell people to do the most basic things. I'm a security guard, not saying the company. I'm a security guard. And when I ask people to wear a mask or please cooperate with rules, I get so much from people. It's ridiculous. I work in a very like upscale kind of like housing association, and just the people are just so awful. So awful. And I think to myself, it's like where I live, I could see a woman, panhandling to get food, see people, dozens of homeless people out here. And then by the time I get into this wealthy neighborhood, it's like a totally different universe. You go from seeing things like Chevys and Dodges on the road to straight up seeing, you know, Teslas and Maseratis on the road, and these ugly, blocky looking shopping plaza areas, which I never get. Friggin' hate that about living in like suburban areas where it's like these giant, ugly, boxy looking things. Anyway. And they're so rude and just, ugh, just do not like them at all. But they complain about things that really have no weight in reality in terms of being upset about things. Went past one man there who started screaming at a man for just simply looking at him, and he didn't like the way he kept looking at him. I'm like, really? You're gonna pick a fight with a man on the street because he looked at you funny? This is beyond ridiculous. You are not dealing with things internally that are just making you neurotic and insane. The lack of introspection amongst a lot of adult people, especially at this point, is beyond ridiculous. I remember there was this one lady, I had to tell her that this area that she was at was closed at that time. It closes at 10 p.m. and she kept arguing with me. And I had to explain to her over and over and over again that this is housing association policy. This isn't anything that I'm doing. This is something based on the housing association policy. And that if you have an issue, you can call them and talk it with them. But there was literally nothing I could do for her. Thankfully, the man that was with her understood and tried to like get her to leave. But it's just instances like that that just truly make every day hell here in the US. And it's so frustrating. I even see it as a customer sometimes where like I'll walk into a store and somebody is just screaming at the top of their lungs at some poor cashier. And I'm just like, I understand that everybody's going through something, but stop and look inside yourself and ask, is there something wrong with me that makes me think that it's okay to talk to this person like this? Nobody seems to be interested in giving each other the benefit of the doubt anymore. I think we've all made fucked up determinations as to what somebody is anymore. The country I knew when I was a little girl is dead. The place I used to know when I was a kid in the 90s is gone. I remember, this is going to make me sound like such a millennial, but I remember what life was like before 9/11. I remember when you could go out and you weren't paranoid about shit. And it was like, once 9/11 happened, everything changed. I noticed myself, even as a kid, being scared about certain things. I couldn't look in the sky without seeing a plane and being terrified. I used to have nightmares from watching CNN with those big clouds of dust that just go straight down a street. It was a nightmare. And then it was like years later, the recession hit, and it was like Nobody I knew could move out. Nobody I knew could get ahead or do anything. The dreams we had of getting our own places and starting our own lives like our parents or even grandparents just seemed so off the beaten path. And I think it's psychologically messed with us in a really deep way, meaning people my age. I think it really impacted people my age, and I'd say particularly millennial men. I saw it particularly with them because they had to deal with the reality of the recession while at the same time still having to deal with the cultural pressure of being a man and moving out and having your own shit together. And it's just this constant idea of having to like keep up with the Joneses and stuff like that to get ahead constantly. So many moments in my own life where I thought, well, I wanted to do this and I wanted to do that. You know, our lives are going to look so way different from our parents or grandparents. Like that idea of owning your own home, living that middle class life. For someone like myself, it just might as well be a fairy tale. And it's depressing when you know that your life will be much harder than your parents or grandparents in some ways. Because you add from the economic reality that we're facing and have been facing for a long time, from living in a what is it, service industry economy to practically, well, before we were a service-based economy, which was like a product of like the post-recession era, um, post, what was it, 2009 Great Recession economy. Before that, for many, many decades, you know, um, we were a manufacturing society. We made and built our own manufacturing. But you could say that went and died off in the 70s and 80s. Somewhere around like I want to say like the mid 70s, late 80s. Um the 90s, yes, there was outsourcing of jobs, but still things weren't as bad as they are now. And it's just miserable. It's just really miserable. This isn't going to last forever. I stop and I think a lot of young women, they want to be the trad wife. They want to do like homemaker shit like their grandma used to. It's like that's a nice fairy tale. But unless you come from like an upper middle class household or you happen to get lucky and find a man who's just, gonna take care of you, that's not the reality of your life. You're gonna have to work, whether you like to or not. I mean, whatever choice you make in life, whether you're a career woman, or you're a homemaker, it comes with whatever level of sacrifice on either end of things. One of the more interesting things that I think I read about Mark Fisher was that it didn't used to be that the younger people felt as though they didn't have a future. You know, young people actually did at one point look forward to the future, but the concept and idealism of the future had been taken away. I mean, I remember even back in like the early mid 2000s seeing all these like damn post-apocalyptic dystopic films and TV shows. And I think it's just a reflection of like a reality I think a lot of people have felt for a long time, that this isn't going to last forever, and that this is going to end soon. Well, I don't know what else I can add at this point, but stay home and stay safe, I guess. Have a good one. Bye.